Good evening and welcome to In the Corner, episode 7. Uh, I meant to make this video yesterday, just been kind of busy. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, obviously, over the weekend, we had the big fight UFC 311 in Los Angeles. Islam Makhachev and Merab both retained their belts in a very entertaining fashion. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Darren Till stopping Anthony Taylor. Had some big announcements over the weekend, and even one just made in the past 30 minutes or so. So yeah, let's get into it. So first off, we're going to talk about big focus of the podcast, which is UFC 311, breaking it down. We'll start. We'll work our way up. Just in terms of the way the card was going, I thought that it was kind of slow moving. I feel like every UFC card, the prelims are always like kind of slow. Like don't get a lot of finishes, not that super exciting fights. A lot of these are like 30-27 fights. You had like guys, Rinya Nakamura, who's a big prospect. He was beaten for the first time. Then you had, what were some other good fights? Grant Dawson and Diego Ferreira. I feel like I remember them having a pretty good fight. Bogdan Guskov got the first finish of the night with a submission. That was a pretty crazy fight. The first of the big fights, Peyton Talbot loses for the first time in his professional MMA career. He was 9-0. He's now 9-1. Huge prospect. And I didn't know too much about Barcelos, but the fact that he was the featured prelim, and I know that he wasn't supposed to be. I know it's supposed to be Almeida and Spivak, but they got moved up to the main card with all the shuffles they had to make last minute. But the fact that this was a featured prelim fight on a really big pay-per-view let me know, okay, he's in with a really tough opponent, like a big step up, and I don't know if it was time to do that step up yet. He just got pretty much dominated, honestly, like totally 30-27. First two rounds is just completely out-wrestled. I mean, Barcelos has total control on top of him the whole time. You get to the third round, Talbot has a lot more success in the first half of that round. Lands a lot of really good strikes. I think he even controls the ground some. But then the last 2 minutes or so, Barcelos gets control again, dominates him, and then towards the end, really starts pummeling him. And, there was potential. People were saying, oh, he may stop him. Did not get the finish, but gets the unanimous decision. In fact, I think that it was 30-27 all the way around. It's rough, to see such a young prospect, not terribly. I think he's 26, but such a highly touted prospect lose so early in their career. This is MMA, it's not boxing, so it's not the end of the world. So he can come back. I thought that if he got maybe 3, maybe 4 good wins this year, he could find himself in enter the rankings. I don't think that's going to happen. But, he can come back, he can work hard. It wasn't a bad loss. He didn't get finished or anything. He didn't look awful. It was clear that he wasn't ready. They jumped up the levels too fast and, got outskilled, outclassed. Kevin Holland lost a first-round submission to Reinier de Ridder pretty fast. This was rough to see for Kevin Holland. He's now lost 4 of his last 5 fights. His plan was to fight 6 times this year, apparently. I don't know if that still happens. I mean, if you've already lost, granted, he fought on January 18th. There's plenty of time to fight in the rest of the year, but 6 times is insane. You know what I mean? Like what level of fights are they going to be? Are they going to be gatekeeper fights where you just get finished in the first round like this one? I don't know. I don't know what the plan is with Kevin Holland, but he's kind of in a weird spot. He's not ranked. Keeps losing to guys that, at least with his name value, he should be beating. So we'll see what happens with him in the coming months. I'm worried he could turn into a Tony Ferguson of sorts. Jailton Almeida gets a great TKO in round 1 against Sergey Spivak. That was a great heavyweight fight. Really exciting. Actually, it wasn't even super exciting. I feel like Spivak was kind of dominating him now, if I'm remembering correctly, or was just at least winning the round. He had more control, and then it just totally turned, and Almeida got control, and then he started, took him down, pummeled him, and got the finish. But yeah, those first 2 fights, man, really quick first round finishes, and I was like, oh man, we're moving at a really good pace here for UFC, for UFC pay-per-views. I don't like how late they are. I live in the East Coast, so when you started at 10 p.m., they don't go until 1:30, and this one did end up going to around 1 is when the broadcast totally ended. So still 1 a.m., but not 2 a.m. So I appreciated the fast finishes. Next up, we had the Yuri Prochazka and Jamal Hill fight. This was a really exciting one just because two top light heavyweights, I think they were ranked 3 and 4, both coming off knockout losses to Alex Pereira early. Jamal Hill, he's just like totally lost his public sentiment. Really weird, to be honest, just straight up delusion with the Alex Pereira fight. Doesn't speak on anything for months. Comes out, says like, "Oh, I want to fight him again. I'll knock him out." And I'm like, dude, do you not remember how easily he smited you last time? He pulls up to the UFC PI gym, and goes like, "Oh, we're not on Twitter now." And then Pereira like just throws a pair of gloves on and says, "All right, let's fight." And then he stops talking, So I don't get it, And then he comes into this fight and he's getting booed as the American. Yuri is a big fan favorite, and I just thought it was funny how they were doing their stare, and it was like Jamal was trying to make it a intimidating stare, but Yuri's just the coldest guy there. I mean, him and Alex are literally like the two most intimidating guys in the division just when they stare off, and it's really weird for what you do with Yuri going on from here. He had a fantastic performance. I'm pretty sure he won like every round. A lot of eye pokes. They traded eye pokes. I remember Yuri's, he had to take a long time to recover from it. And then Yuri gets the finish in round 3, knocks him down once or twice, and just, puts a beating on him and gets the finish, which was cool to see. He calls out Alex Pereira to fight for a trilogy. And when he does it, I'm just like, dude, I don't know, because fights Alex Pereira for the vacant title, end of 2023, and Pereira just, he knocks him out. Then Yuri goes back, gets a good win, comes back into the Pereira rematch, gets knocked out again, gets a good win against Jamal Hill, and now he's already calling for the title shot. And it's weird because I feel like with where he is, he's better than everyone in the division except for Pereira. Pereira totally just smites him every time. So, you don't want to do the trilogy right again. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It's because of how it hasn't been very competitive. Then, what if Ankalaev beats Pereira, which we'll talk about in a little bit because that fight got officially announced for UFC 313 March 8th. What if what if Ankalaev can beat Pereira? Then you can maybe make sense for Yuri getting a title shot, or Pereira moves up. Otherwise, I think Yuri needs to have another win before he gets a title shot. Khalil Roundtree is a good option. I actually don't know who else is really a good option. He's pretty clearly at the top of the 205 division. I would just love to see the Roundtree fight. Maybe the winner of Blachowicz-Olberg. I think that they're fighting in London. So there's some good fights to be made for him, but it's weird when he's in that position of deserves the title shot, soon enough, but he's already lost to the champion twice. It just doesn't make sense. So I don't know. Co-main event: Merab Dvalishvili, Umar Nurmagomedov. This was like one of the best title fights I've seen in a while. Umar, the whole fight was competitive, but I thought Umar definitely won the first 2 rounds, and I think Merab definitely won the last 3 rounds. Merab gets the unanimous decision win. Very good fight. I really, going into this, I was like, this fight's going to be boring. You got 2 guys that are probably going to wrestle the whole time. It's probably not going to be very exciting. Whoever does win, it's going to end up dominating. I couldn't have been more wrong. Umar was, winning. Is like, yeah, this is kind of what we expected. Still competitive. And then apparently he breaks his hand and he loses his cardio. Merab has insane cardio, as we all know. And Merab is just styling on him. And I saw somebody say, like, they really are, like, mixed. This is the truest form of mixing all the martial arts. They were doing everything. They were punching. They were kicking. They were wrestling. They were just doing everything. It was so awesome to watch. Merab was emoting in the ring, like, and they're in the cage. It was so funny. Gets the win, and just has like a funny one with Dana White. And we need to change the perception on Merab. He's a great character. He is. And I think he's an entertaining fighter. He made that fight like genuinely so exciting. And obviously it takes 2 to tango. Umar still had a decent performance. He just, wasn't good enough, was disappointing, as the favorite challenger. But, Merab just did a splendid performance. He was entertaining in the fight. Was like doing all the emotes and stuff, just really selling himself as an entertainer. And, already if you look at his resume with who he's beaten, O'Malley, Aldo, Umar, Yen. It's kind of starting to clear out the division. I don't know who gets the title shot next. I know that Merab spoke of I think it was a back injury or something that he had, but he still fought. And I know that Umar broke his hand, so I was gonna say, and I didn't learn that until after the fight. But on the night, I was saying that O'Malley and Umar rematch could be good for the winner. Um, or O'Malley Yan could be another one that could be good. And then the winner gets to rematch. Merab, I'm sorry, I think I said Umar a second ago. I would like to see O'Malley and Umar fight for the right to fight Merab, and it may end up being just O'Malley, just cause, which I wouldn't hate. I don't think that O'Malley deserves it as of right now, but he is still a huge name in UFC, so you come to expect it. Main event: Islam Makhachev, Renato Moicano. Moicano comes into this fight late, hoping he can do some fun stuff. There was no way he won. He was gonna win. And then Islam just totally shows the levels. I mean, I don't know how quick it was, but it was in round one, and just gets the submission. Well, by the time that when he locked that in, it didn't feel like they were on the ground for that much. I looked away for a second, and they were on the ground, and then he just got that position. And by the time he got it, it was like, yeah, this is done. And then he immediately got into the tap. It was nuts. And even Dana White officially said, yeah, I know he's the new pound for pound in his eyes. There's no way he's not. He now has the most title fight wins in UFC history with 5. He passed Khabib. Now, he's got 15 consecutive win streak. So, tied with Usman for second. He gets one more win. He's tied with Silva for the most. He gets 2 more wins. He has the highest win streak in UFC history, which is nuts. Yeah, it was just a brilliant performance. As for what's next for him, he was in there so quick. I know Ramadan's coming up, so he probably can't fight until after that. I would like to see him. Not sure when Ramadan ends, but if they do a pay-per-view in May or June, June, honestly, get him out there again. He had a really good performance. As for who he fights, I like the Oliveira rematch. The Sarukian fight is also good, but I think Dana White said that Sarukian now needs to have another fight before he can get a title shot, which is, understandable. I also heard about Ilya moving up. I think Ilya is not time for him to move up yet. Fight Lopez or Volk or Evloev, probably fight Volk and then have Lopez and Evloev fight the winner of that, and then you can move up once you do that. But until then, stay at 145. Islam fight Oliveira, then probably Sarukian, if Sarukian keeps winning. Yeah, overall, really, really good event. I liked the I thought the arena looked cool. The only thing was the lights on the seats, which I liked, but I feel like it also kind of made it look empty at times. Just because, I kind of assumed at first that all those lights were empty seats because there were some where the lights weren't showing. So I wasn't sure. But, it made it hard to see, the people in there. It was dark in there with the, meant to, bring out, the lights, make it look cool. But really cool, innovative arena. The screen at the top was very nice. It was a good show all around. It kind of felt like the Sphere at sometimes. It was that cool. We'll just move into the other UFC topic. 313 was announced. Alex Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship of the World. It's March 8th in Vegas. We knew this fight was probably going to be next. I like it. Ankalaev is definitely a deserving contender. I'm a huge Alex Pereira fan. He's my favorite UFC fighter. I'm really, really worried just because Ankalaev is a great, grappler and stuff, and that's the one thing that Pereira is not just a killer at. He's a striker. There's a chance he can just, knock him out up top, and I think that he could. He's that powerful, but I just know that if Ankalaev gets him on the ground and dominates him for 5 rounds, there's no way Pereira's going to out-wrestle him. So they need to have a really good game plan. But excited to see that fight. I love how active Pereira is. Really excited for that one. Co-main on that, Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker. What a scrap! The brain damage is gonna be had. The amount of punches thrown is gonna be nuts. That is just an all-out war. It's gonna. I can't wait for it. It's gonna be such a fun fight. That's the co-main event as it should be. I believe it's gonna be 5 rounds, and honestly, that may end up being potential for a not a title eliminator. But winner of that can go into a fight with for a number 1 contender matchup. Let's say if Oliveira is next, you could do winner of Gaethje Hooker versus Sarukian, maybe. Winner of that gets the winner of Makhachev Pereira or Makhachev Oliveira. Sorry, both Brazilian. I like those fights. But Gaethje Gaethje Hooker, sorry, he's going to be a phenomenal fight. It's a T-Mobile Arena card, so it should be a pretty good one. Really, really excited for UFC 313. I'm pretty sure they're getting close to rounding out the whole March schedule, so pretty soon we're going to figure out what's going on in April. Yeah, moving on from there, let's talk about Misfits 20 for a little bit. Overall, it was a good card. Had a lot of not as good names on it, not as big names, but that ended up making it pretty funny. He had a lot of like really funny fights, like the Little T Afghan Dan fight. Like trust me, if you haven't watched it, look it up on YouTube, watch it. It's the funniest fight ever. I mean, Afghan Dan must have spun in a circle at least 30 times. It was so hilarious. And then he randomly dislocates his shoulder in the second round and loses. Like just hilarious stuff. Co-main event, Wade Plem looked insanely impressive, and I'm a huge fan of Wade, so that was really awesome to see. I'm really proud of him. Did awesome. Was totally against the company there. If you don't know the backstory, he's fired from Misfits, and they've just had a long-going rivalry between him and Mams Taylor and stuff, and KSI and the whole company. They bring him on to try and set him in a trap, and he beat the trap. And it seems like he's going to stay fighting. So impressive. Didn't get the knockout. Definitely tired in round 4, so needs to work on his cardio. But how composed, how calm he looked, how good he was with his jab, just totally outclassed his opponent, at least for those first 3 rounds before he got tired. Yeah, I mean, like, in terms of, like, how big of a name he was to come in and how, bright the lights were for his debut, he had one of the most impressive debuts I've ever seen from a YouTuber. Looked awesome. Hopefully we can get him back in the ring soon. HS Tiki Taki is now actually a really interesting fight. I may have to put HS as a favorite, even though we've only seen him fight one time and he fought a trash can. It's just HS looks so dangerous. But Wade's boxing skill and how good he looked for never having fought before was so impressive. So really cool to see that. Main event was Darren Till, Anthony Taylor. Listen, I am a huge Anthony Taylor fan. I think he's hilarious. I'm a big fan of Misfits. He's one of my favorite characters over there. And I like Darren Till as well. But just when they got in that ring, Darren Till was so much bigger than him. And there was nothing AT could do to him. I mean, honestly, in terms of his boxing performance, really good at just keeping AT out of there. AT is an inside fighter. Did a really good job of keeping AT away from him. Wouldn't let him clinch. Wouldn't let him, get too close. AT didn't even try to clinch that much. He just, he's kind of stopped doing that, which honestly I think he should have in this fight. Actually, no, maybe not because he's undersized, but it just, I don't know if it was cardio, but gets dropped hard in the 4th with just a solid uppercut from Till. Same thing happens in the 6th, and then he just, beats on him and stops him. And it was hard to see, excuse me. I'm a big fan of AT. He's never been stopped before. That was his first time ever, at least in boxing. He may have been stopped in MMA, but he's never been stopped in boxing. And I kind of was picking AT for the upset. That may be crazy looking back on it. I don't know. But Darren Till was really impressive. Honestly, him versus Tommy Fury would have been a very interesting fight. And now that he's gotten his first win, he's finally an MMA fighter that made the transition to boxing and won. So now that he's got that experience and he's got that confidence, he can come in there and he could genuinely fight a Jake Paul or a KSI. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But really good main event. Really good card overall. Meant to be 8 rounds. Darren Till stops Anthony Taylor in the 6th. Apparently, AT collapsed on his way out of the ring, which was very scary to hear that. He was fine. He, came to after, and he didn't even have to go to the hospital. But, yeah, crazy what happened there. Just really did not expect Till to beat Taylor like that. It was all Darren Till from the get-go, through all 6 rounds that happened. Speaking of Misfits 20, big thing that went down on that broadcast, KSI announced his next fight. Now, thankfully, it's no longer happening. But I'll just tell you the story. He makes a joke. He's doing the whole WWE. Calling people out, who should I fight? They're showing people in the audience like Tony Bellew, and Big Zoo, just random people. Abdul Rozak, didn't make any sense. It was all jokes. Then he brings out an old man on the stage. An old man with white hair and a cane. I'll fight you. I'm like, okay, that's funny. That's funny. He's making fun of Jake Paul, fighting Mike Tyson and fighting older MMA fighters, that's funny. All right, let's get to it. Then he proceeds to bring into the ring Wayne Bridge, who is a 44-year-old ex-footballer. He played for Chelsea. Apparently, from what I've been told, wasn't even that outstanding of a player. Um, Not even a huge name, I don't think. Um, so after making fun of Jake Paul for fighting old MMA fighters, and very old boxers, but old UFC champions and stuff, he then brings out an old soccer player, which is I mean, Jake Paul's version of this was Nate Robinson, and it was his second pro fight, and that was the last guy he fought that didn't have a fighting record. So it just doesn't make any sense, like to play that card. Like if you're gonna do that as a fight, you're already gonna get this criticism, regardless. That's a bad idea, And I know that they had the opponent pull out, who it was supposed to be, and they did this last minute. But the fact that you went as far as making the old man joke, and then brought out an actual old, not even a fighter, just an older, guy who's not in his athletic prime, I was like, oh my god, like how stupid are you? Like, genuinely. Like, you just made yourself such a hypocrite. The crowd booed, and KSI came in, is talking about how apparently this other guy, John Terry, and I don't really know UK football. I'm not a big soccer fan, but, John Terry slept with Wayne Bridges' wife. She was making jokes about that. Coming out Monday afternoon, that Wayne Bridge has pulled out of the KSI fight, with that being the reason that he has to do what's right for his family, and he doesn't want to, thought that KSI's comments crossed the line, and that he's not going to be, and publicly, doing that. He's not going to be crossing those lines. He doesn't want his family to have to sit through, him having to trash talk about their family, which I get it. I really do. You have to be prepared for that stuff if you're going to come into the YouTuber world, specifically the fight game. The YouTubers specific, like, they don't have lines. I mean, look at what Dylan Danis did with Logan Paul. Some people, they just push it way too far. You have to be ready to, like, if you have, like, a past like that, you got to be ready for it to come up. They're going to dig up all the skeletons in the closet. It's not like normal, respectful fighting. But you don't want to do it, I get it. Probably another reason is that he got terrible backlash from it, because it's just an awful idea for that fight to happen. I mean, how many warm-ups does this guy need? He brought, for 2022 to 2023, had like 3 or 4 warm-up fights, then got to Tommy Fury and got beat. Now he's going to do what? More warm-up fights? Like, come on, man, get to it. Fight someone. I'm only going to fight big names. Then fight a big name who can fight. I don't care if he had a decent amateur record. He's 44 years old and he's a soccer player. He's not a boxer. It just doesn't make sense. And at least if you're going to do it with somebody like a big name. Wayne Rooney's been talked about a lot. See the guy Ibrahimovic. Like the guys like that, I'm pretty sure. I mean, again, I don't really know soccer that much, but they're bigger names than Wayne Bridges, as far as I'm concerned, from what I know. It just came out of the blue. I wouldn't be surprised if Misfits, honestly, was kind of like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do this. Nobody had any interest in it. Made no sense. So now they're back to square one. Got to find a new opponent. But we know the fight is KSI will be fighting March 29th. No location yet. So don't know what that's about, but will likely be in the UK. Be on DAZN pay-per-view. Misfits 21, that'll be. But we'll see what happens. Some other cards that took place this weekend. Omar Trinidad, Mike Plania on a UFC Fight Pass on Friday night. Pretty good card. Trinidad totally dominated Plania across 10 rounds. Had some good... had a good amount of good fights on that card. Again, it just started too late. Also a 10 p.m. start time. You had Mizuki Hiruta defending her WBO 115 world title. Another dominant performance. Ali Akhmedov did quite well. He had a second round stoppage over Malcolm Jones. Some other good prospects on that card. Fun night overall. Then you had BKFC in the Pachanga Resort Casino in near Temecula, California. Decent card. It was weird. The first 5 fights of that card all were early stoppages. Last 4 fights all went the distance, which is really rare for BKFC. Usually you see a lot more stoppages compared to decisions that wise, but it's really weird that all the stoppages came and then all the decisions came. I feel like all the last 5 fights on those cards usually end in knockouts. It's the other way around this time. But, decent fights. The last couple fights were a little bit disappointing just because when it comes to BKFC, I know that they're better fighters, but I don't like the tactical stuff. I like the crazy, just like throw in hoping for the best fights on BKFC. But overall, good event. They got Knucklemania next weekend, which I'm stoked for. Saturday, the 25th, is going to be an awesome day. We'll talk about that more towards the end of the episode. And on, I think Thursday, I'm planning we'll do another episode where we'll go through all the fights next weekend. But yeah, this next weekend's looking really good, as was this weekend. Just announced in the last couple hours, the Ring Magazine USA card to take place in May. We knew that it was supposed to be Ryan and Devin on the co-headlining. Initially supposed to be Ryan Garcia, Pitbull Cruz. Pitbull has a fight on February 1st against Angel Fierro. It will now be Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero, which, to be honest, is a better fight. Pitbull's a better fighter, as we saw he beat Rolly, but Rolly is a much better promoter. He's very funny. Him and Ryan will be super funny together. They've had a rivalry over the years. They're meant to fight, kind of. They were in talks for it last year. It's a good fight for both of them now. Makes a little bit more sense weight-wise, because Pitbull is, 135, and then he went up to 140. He's been fighting at 140, but, maybe should be still at 135, and then he'd be jumping up to 147. Rolly's been at 140, was likely to move up to 147 at some point. So it makes a little bit more sense that wise. Makes more sense promotion-wise. And just honestly, like, the matchup, I think, will be, more fun. Rolly's a bigger name as well. Good fight. Excited for that. Devin Haney, Jose Ramirez is also a good fight. Maybe a little bit boring. Neither guys are particularly exciting. But I'd have to think that, Haney and Ryan are big favorites in these. I definitely think Haney will beat Ramirez. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Maybe a little bit if Haney's really gun-shy. That could cause an issue, but Haney's still a very elite boxer. And Ryan, him and Rolly could be good, but I think Ryan is more powerful and, still should be able to get Rolly potentially out of there because Rolly does have a bit of a chin, as we've seen in the Tank and Pitbull fights. But those are good fights. Also in the card, you got Martin Bakoli, F.A. Ajagba. Listen, I like that's going to be on a big card and hopefully get big focus. Those three fights together are awesome. However, I would like it. This would have been a really good fight to do in Africa. I know it's not big enough to be a headliner maybe for like a Ring Magazine card, but when you're this, you could fight. It'll likely be Bakoli. You fight somebody like AJ in Africa, that'd be sick. That'd be so awesome. But happy we're getting the fights anyways. Apparently, what the plan is, and this is big, for Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney is they fight on the separate card. I've heard Times Square, which doesn't make any sense, but probably New York maybe. Sometime in May. It's been announced now. It'll be in the U.S. in May. Then you get them rematching in October. Also on that October card, and this is likely in Saudi, you would get Teofimo Lopez and Jerome Ennis fighting. And then the winners of those fights meet up in February. So we got some really good fights ahead of us, it sounds like. And the losers would also fight. So as of right now, Teofimo Lopez apparently is in talks with Richardson Hitchens for unification at 140. And then Jerome Boots Ennis is in negotiations and potentially finalizing to fight Imantas Stanionis. Sorry, trouble saying his name. April 12th, and that would be at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, targeting April 12th. I think that'll happen. So big unifications for both fighters, and to be honest, those may be like the two in their respective divisions, maybe the two best champions, in each of those spots. The champions at 140, you've got Teofimo and Richardson Hitchens, and then you got Jose Valenzuela, who's also good, and Alberto Pereira. They're both good, but I think Teofimo and Richardson, at least out of the champions, are probably 1 and 2. At welterweight, you got Barrios and Norman as well, but I think that Boots and Stanionis are probably number 1 and 2 of that division. Do those two fights. They fight at welterweight. Teofimo moves up after that, fights Boots. Should he beat Stanionis and should Teofimo beat Richardson Hitchens, they fight for what would then be a unified welterweight championship. Then Devin Haney tweeted by 140, even though him and Ramirez are both 140-pounders, they may be fighting at 147, or he's fighting Ramirez at 140, then he's going to go to 147 for the Garcia rematch. They fight in October, same card. The winners of those two fights will fight in February. The losers fight in February as well. I love that format. The only issue I have is that we're setting these fights up way too far in advance. You're also, committing Boots to stay at 147 for 3 more fights when he was already saying at the end of his last fight with Chukadzian, I'm not sure, that he was ready to move up maybe. So I'm a little bit worried about him making 147 for another year. But I love those fights, and they would give Boots the opportunity to really boost his name. He hasn't had the big fight yet. He could get at 154 with Virgil Ortiz, didn't. Unification will do him well, but it won't make him a huge name. Fighting somebody like Teofimo and then Ryan or Devin, very big name. So, yeah, let's see what happens. But yeah, no, it's really exciting times for the sport. That just got announced. We don't know where or when exactly. We know it's in the States during May, but that's vague. I know they're going to do a Eubank Ben official announcement this week, which I assume comes with a press conference. I wouldn't be surprised if next week we get one with this U.S. May Rings magazine card. Excuse me. All right, let's run over some other topics. Another big piece of news. Canelo Crawford apparently is being finalized for September, Mexican Independence Day weekend. I love it. It's not official yet. We talked about this a lot in the last podcast. I like it. We know Canelo will likely fight May 3rd. That could be against William Skull. I heard something the other day. I'm not sure if this is real at all. That Crawford, this isn't even a joke, that Crawford is looking at taking a warm-up fight at 168 against Derevyanchenko. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a fight at 168 beforehand. I would be maybe a little bit because he only fights once a year. But wouldn't be fully surprised if he does that just to test the waters. Say he does that against a guy like Derevyanchenko, maybe a little bit weird. If he is doing this, I see some people say he should vacate the one WBA belt. He definitely should if he's going to take more than one fight at 168. If it's just the Canelo fight, whatever. He still probably should vacate it. But if he's going to go up and take a warm-up fight against Derevyanchenko, then, fight Canelo, probably vacate WBA 154. But I don't know. That fight is finalizing. Hopefully it gets done. Apparently Canelo has signed, the rumors that he's signed a 3-fight deal with His Excellency, which would be sick. We'd probably see him fight Crawford, maybe the Bivol Beterbiev 2 winner. To be honest, they could maybe get him to fight David Benavidez. We're just getting to a really good position with all these fights. I like Canelo Crawford just because I think it's the best fight for both those guys. They're kind of missing a huge dance partner in their division, so jump across divisions. I know it's weird. I know it's unorthodox. I know it's kind of circusy, but who cares? Let's just do it. Anthony Cacace is apparently likely to vacate his IBF belt after we heard that him and Sugar Nunes had, I thought they'd finished a deal or were getting towards potentially doing the fight. Now he's going to be vacating, potentially to fight Lee Wood. And then Sugar Nunes would then have to fight Masanori Rikishi for the vacant 130 title. I actually don't mind Cacace Wood. I know they were working on it for the Joshua Dubois card. I think that's a good fight. Wood has been out for far too long. He's been out since October 2023, which is weird because he had 3 World Championship fights in 2023. Then he's out for all of 2024. So hopefully he can get that'd be a big fight for him. A little bit weird from Cacace to duck and then also stay at 130. If he moved it to 135, it's something else. But staying at 130 and just taking another fight is a little bit, I don't know. But I like the Cacace Wood fight a lot. This is a good British fight. And then Sugar Nunes still gets his world title shot. It would be fun to see Cacace Nunes, but Nunes gets the world title shot against Rikishi. Could be fun. Yeah. So I'm okay with that. But as long as Nunes gets his world title shot, because he's been patiently waiting for it. Another piece of news. The Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship is returning to the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida, March 27th. That's a Thursday. They have really good shows there. They do 4 years or something, so I'm not surprised they're going to be back in March. But Thursday is a little bit weird of a date for them. They usually do Friday, Saturday. I don't hate it because a lot of the times, BKFC is kind of secondary in what I usually get excited to. They have big cards, with Knucklemania and stuff. But, for example, this last fight on Saturday on the Pachanga Casino, there's no reason why that should be on Saturday competing with UFC. Put it on Friday. It could totally compete with that, UFC Fight Pass card. Probably gets more views than it. But Thursday? Yeah, I'm okay with it. However, this seems like it's going to be a big card. We know that they're also planning the Mike Perry return for March or April. I wouldn't be surprised if this could be that. They've got a few thousand seats in there. I wouldn't be surprised. I bet he's fought there before. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what this is. The Thursday night's a little bit weird. We don't usually get big fights on Thursdays. I know there was the Misfits card. We've had some top-ranked cards over the years on Thursday, but don't usually see the big fights on Thursday. If it is a big fight, sure. I like my weekday boxing. Jose Valenzuela versus Gary Antoine Russell has been announced for, I think it's the co-main event. It hasn't been confirmed. I mean, they just announced it. I'm pretty sure it is. The co-main event for Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach, March 1st. This will be for the WBA Super Lightweight World Championship. I really like this fight. I think it's a good matchup. It should be a really exciting fight. I don't think that it's good. I don't think that Russell deserves the title shot at all. He fought Puello for the interim belt in June. He lost that fight, so he loses his WBC mandatory shot there. Then, and Puello gets upgraded anyways to full champion. In what way does that mean? Okay, now you can just go and get straight into an actual title shot. You lost your interim title shot. Now you get a full title shot with another sanction. Makes no sense. There are better guys that Valenzuela could defend against. It's one of those things that it kind of sucks when you see somebody who just doesn't deserve a title shot. However, I'm willing to accept it if I think it's a good fight, and I think that this is a good fight. Either one of these guys, they're good fighters at 140, but it feels like they haven't really gotten the chance to really define themselves and announce themselves in the division. I don't even think that Valenzuela is highly ranked in the ring top 10. And he's a champion there. He's the WBA champion. He's not even that well ranked. This is their chance to really, two good fighters in the division to, staple themselves as one of the staples of the division. Say, hey, I'm here to stay. I have a belt, and I'm one of the, best guys here. And then hopefully we unify with the winner of Puello Sandor Martin, which I'm hearing is on the same card March 1st. Perfectly sets up a unification. I know PBC doesn't like doing that, but I think that makes a lot of sense to unify those belts after this. New Matchroom Boxing signing is announced on Tuesday. I'm hearing it could be Omari Jones. I think it's a little bit weird. They keep on just hyping up these announcements, and then they end up being prospects, and it's bro, you just drop the George Kambosos announcement. You just drop the Shakur Stevenson. You just drop the Boots Ennis. These are just ones I'm remembering off the top of my head. But these are former world champions, current world champions, huge names in the sport. But then when it's Pat Brown, you do a 2-week hype up, doing all this promo, and then it's he's a prospect. I know he's an Olympian, but and he's gonna do good things, but reeks of huge ticket seller that is gonna get beat early in his career, and I'm hoping the same thing doesn't happen here. I'm just hearing it's Omari Jones because one of the pictures, people said it looks like his gym, his outline, it could be him. I know I believe he's one of Devin Haney's guys, so it'd be a co-promotion. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. He's one of those guys that's a good prospect, but hasn't really gotten the chance to, jump himself up because he hasn't been given good promotion and been on a lot of big fight cards, so this would fix that. I do think it's a U.S. fighter because I noticed in their fight week schedule that they have a press conference during Pacheco-Nelson fight week, not Smith-Owiza fight week. So, yeah, I think it's somebody from the U.S., or at least that hemisphere. Yeah, so I'm excited to see what that is. Angelo Leo versus Tomoki, I think that's his name, Kameda, is now set for May 24th in Japan, apparently. This is kind of frustrating just because they were supposed to fight in February. Then it was Leo said, yeah, it's going to be end of March. I think he said March 29th, and it felt announced. It felt confirmed. Now it's been set back to May 24th. It's just oh my gosh, when are they going to get this fight going? Leo's going to be the away fighter, for his first defense. We'll see what happens with him and Kameda. That's a good fight. I'm excited for that one. But yeah, it'll be on May 24th in Japan, and that's a Saturday, so it's good. It'll be on the weekend. You can wake up early for it. BKFC is coming to Italy April 26th. It's going to be the same date and time as the big fight with Eubank and Ben, apparently. There's a presser set for February 7th where they're probably going to announce that. I don't know who that is yet. Could be the Mike Perry card. I don't know if I see him in Italy unless he fights a big name. That could be European. But it could just be a big fight card. How they did Spain. So we'll see what happens there. I like this going to be in April, and they've already got they're going to have 2 cards in Dubai. I think they said 4th and 5th, and that's probably related to the tournament. But they're and this actually could be as well. I'm not sure, but they're doing a lot of big events, it seems, which is good because this first few stretches of the year they're doing 4 back-to-back events. Not a ton of them are big, but they have the Pachanga card on the 18th. Then they have Knucklemania on the 25th. They've got Mohegan Sun on the 1st, and they've got Newcastle on the 8th. And those are all Saturdays. I don't know if any of those really qualify for Saturday outside of Knucklemania, but, I like my BKFC. Keep them coming. Vidal Riley versus Isaac Chamberlain is officially off, which sucks because it's a fight we've heard about for so long, and then it's not happening, which really blows. However, we're hearing that Riley has a new fight potentially, and I don't think this will be on the Azim card, so that really deals a serious blow to that card, because that card is going to be Azim versus Lipinets, which should be a good fight, and then Riley versus Chamberlain, which is going to be a great fight. And then, you've got the rest of the card is okay, but just those two fights make it worth it. Now you don't have that. But, we're looking at, apparently, for the Eubank Ben undercard, Vidal Riley versus Chev Clark, which is honestly a better fight. Chamberlain's good. It's still a huge step up for Vidal, but I think he was definitely a favorite. Him and Chev, even though Chev has just lost, it's a 50-50 fight. Vidal may be a slight favorite just because he's undefeated, but Chev has been fighting at a higher level. He was the British champion. He fought for the European belt. High up in the rankings, definitely more accomplished in his career so far than Vidal was. So I really like that fight. That could be a lot of fun on that card. Good British fight. Liam Smith versus Aaron McKenna is also a great fight. I don't know if it's a great fight, actually. It's a great crossroads fight. Makes me wonder a little bit, Liam Smith is not this late into his career, or not late enough that he needs to become a gatekeeper, like a journeyman. Not a journeyman, but a gatekeeper. He was going to fight Josh Kelly. That's a good fight. Him fighting a genuine contender, not in the same division, but a good contender. Now, it seems almost similar to what they were doing with Eubank and Shiraz. Although Eubank and Shiraz were both, top 5 guys at 160. Shiraz was the guy coming up. Eubank was the guy who, was kind of not on his way out, but older. You could see that's like a good 50-50 fight. That makes sense. It was more of a crossroads fight. This fight, I think you'd have to favor McKenna. Liam Smith has definitely had a much more experience, but McKenna is younger. He's a prospect. I don't know. He's more of a contender now, but a rising star, you could say. That's a dangerous fight for Liam Smith, so we'll see what happens. It makes some sense, not a ton of sense. I don't know. Adam Azim would also be on that card, should he beat Sergey Lipinets. Listen, Dalton Smith fights this weekend. If they both get out, that's a perfect card to put it on. Boxer and Metro will be working together, as we know. In fact, as of right now, it's almost sounding like it could be a Boxer Matchroom 5v5. I mean, should they do Clark and Riley? That's Boxer vs. Matchroom. Eubank Ben is Boxer vs. Matchroom. I think Aaron McKenna may be with Boxer. I could be wrong, though. And then I know that Liam Smith has been talking with what's his name? Matchroom with Eddie Hearn. Should we get Azim Smith on there as well? Maybe, depending on what Smith McKenna is, that could be all Boxer Matchroom. That could be a 5v5, or at least a 4v4. At least, a good amount of matchups there being made. Not really hearing a lot of Queensberry talk on that card, so I don't know if it's the same deal with the Riyadh season where they're still a lead promoter. We're going to find out in a few days' time what that card looks like. But yeah, so excited for that card. Should be good. Sucks that it's not going to be Chamberlain and Riley, but if they can get Riley a big fight, on a stadium show against, Chev Clark, that's probably better for his career. Then you can honestly fight Chamberlain after that. I wouldn't mind. But should he beat Chev? Maybe a little bit, too far ahead. And even if he loses to Chev, I think the Chamberlain fight could make more sense. Both coming off losses. Then it makes it more of an exciting, closer fight. Yeah. Lawrence Okolie, Luis Ortiz is in talks. I mean, when was the last time Luis Ortiz fought? It would be a good fight for Okolie. Fights a decent, named heavyweight contender. Will probably win that. Then he, can continue to go up those rankings. Then he could honestly find himself in a good heavyweight matchup, like a good, 50-50 fight like we've been seeing on all the Saudi shows. I would like to see that. Not a bad fight. That's definitely a Queensberry sounding fight, similar to like Derek Chisora, Joy Joyce, or Derek Chisora, Otto Vollen. Honestly, we're getting. Yeah, no, I like that. That should be fun. I don't know if it makes a ton of sense, but whatever. The Pauls met up with McGregor at the Trump inauguration in D.C. Kind of a weird mix, I think. I mean, Logan and McGregor, we know we're talking about fighting. Now it seems like that may not be happening, but they're, they seem to be cool. And I mean, Jake and McGregor have been talking smacked to each other for years. And I know it's been more Jake talking to McGregor, saying he wants to fight him. But I know that McGregor's also said, a lot of bad stuff about Jake. And I don't know if it's just like not the time and place, or when they really see each other, they don't want to stand as a man. I would definitely expect, Jake to be less, kind of switch up a little bit more. And that's what it seemed like in the picture that they took together. That, McGregor still seemed tough, and Jake seemed to almost be not super close to McGregor, but it's just crazy to see them side by side. Like, wow, all these years you talk smack, and then you're standing next to each other taking a picture, laughing. It just doesn't make sense. But Jake looked a lot bigger than him. McGregor still looked bigger than you would expect, but Jake definitely is bigger than him, and Logan as well. Be really crazy if he still fights one of those guys. It's just so funny to wake up and see them together. Like, that is the craziest link up of 2025. Michaela Mayer versus Sandy Ryan 2, March 29th at the Fontaine Blue in Vegas, is potentially going to happen on a top-ranked ESPN show. That first fight was tremendous. Apparently, I think it was their highest viewed women's boxing event on ESPN. I think it had almost 1 million viewers. This rematch will probably have more, after the whole pain incident and how big and how good the first fight was. It should be rematched. Winner of that can fight the winner of Jonas Price for undisputed. I love that. Really happy they're going to run this one back. It's a fantastic fight. I'm really excited. I'm really happy to see that they're working on getting that done, because that makes sense. And March 29th is already looking like it could be kind of busy. I think UFC is going to be in Mexico, if I'm right, on that date, maybe. We've got Top 2 just announced a show for that Sunday, which is a good fight, by the way. Konstantin Ursu and Ethan James from Queensberry. I like that they're getting a lot of the other promoters to work with them. They got Tom Welland from Wasserman headlining their show February 9th, which is cool. They're also doing it on Sunday. We don't really get Sunday boxing. And promotions like Top Check, I was talking about BKFC. I don't like those promotions fighting on Friday. Or Friday I'm okay with, but not Saturday. They shouldn't be doing events on Saturday because they're not going to get seen as well. And I personally, I won't watch them live. If they're on Sunday, I'll absolutely watch them live. There's nothing else on. But yeah, that's going to be on Sunday. We know Misfits will be on Sunday or Saturday, the March 29th. And then we'll have, sounds like Fedor versus somebody. Could be Boachuk, by the way. I actually think that makes a lot of sense. They were supposed to fight last year in March. Didn't happen, with Fedor getting boosted to main event to fight Zoo. But, Boachuk has earned that right. He's just won a WBC eliminator. So Fedor Boachuk makes honestly more sense than ever right now. What are the other big names for him to fight, really? He could fight Charles Conwell. It's okay, but I think Boachuk is a better fight there. It just makes more sense. All the other champions are going to be divvied up unless he does unification with Murtazaliev, but I don't see that happening on, that's a bigger fight. I don't see Fedor taking that fight, but I like the idea of Fedor Boachuk. But yeah, March 29th looks busy is what I'm saying. Lastly, Rafael Espinoza has just said that he wants Nick Ball, for the tallest ever featherweight to fight the shortest ever featherweight champions. I think that's honestly a great fight. They may be the top two guys at featherweight. I feel like everybody at featherweight is so even, and who's the best? Angelo Leo's very good, but I feel like just because he beat Lopez, who was potentially the number one guy in the division, doesn't automatically make him the top dog. He's a great fighter, but should he beat Kameda and then get into a good fight, hopefully unification? Sure. But Ball, just in his run he went on in 2024, was great. He's the one that could get the Inoue fight at the end of the year should Inoue move up, with him being, kind of a Saudi fighter. Then you've got Espinoza, who is also spectacular and has looked so dangerous recently and so well in recent performances. And then you've got Brandon Figueroa, who's also really good, and could be the number one fighter in the division. And he's fighting Stephen Fulton. So great fighters in that weight class, and they need to unify because there's so many good fighters. And, I don't mind Leo Kameda that much, but Ball versus Doheny doesn't make any sense. He got Ronnie Rios, as an easy defense. Fighting Doheny is just even dumber than Rios. He really does not deserve a title shot. After that, Ball needs to unify. And I wouldn't mind seeing Espinoza unify as well. I think Espinoza could move up and fight Navarrete, but Navarrete needs to fight Foster. So they all need to unify, essentially. Everybody needs to unify. Come on, get it together. But I like the idea of Espinoza and Ball unifying. Both guys I know will not duck any smoke. Hopefully business doesn't get in the way. But yeah, some good fights to be made in the featherweight division. That's a really good underrated division, I think. But that will do it for tonight's show. Hope it wasn't too long. I know it took me a while to get this out. Just been busy. Uh, had the big fights on Saturday. Yeah. So glad I could still get this out. Should be another episode later in the week. I got a big week ahead. Thursday, there's the Golden Boy Fight Night with Eric Priest. Friday morning, Naoya Inoue versus Yi Jun Kim, which he should get out of the way very quick. I was really pissed off about him fighting Kim at first. It's grown on me. Not the fight, but just the fact that I'm going to get to see Inoue fight. So I'm just excited. That night we've also got the first Pro Box card of the year, Lopez Castillo. That should be fun. Seems like they're going to do they've been doing a lot of restructuring, so I'm excited to see what that event looks like, how many fights they have on it, etc., etc. Saturday, we're going to get to have 4 shows, and I think that they're 2 during the day and 2 at night, so probably going to be watching both at the same time. We'll have the Bellator, or no longer Bellator, I guess, but the PFL Road to Dubai card with Usman Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes, which I think is a brilliant matchup for PFL to make. Should be a good card as well. At the same time, we'll have Dalton Smith versus Waleed Wiesa. You got Scott Nimotu. That's a unified championship on that card. You got Scarf versus Walker, which is a great British title fight. Should be a really good card. Then we head across the pond. US, we've got Knucklemania 5. Eddie Alvarez, Jeremy Stevens. Mick Terrell versus, is it Mike Rothwell? I know his last name is Rothwell. I can't remember his first name. But Ben Rothwell, sorry. That's a really good fight. Heavyweight title fight. That should be awesome. That's in Philly. And then we've also got on the same night in Vegas, Diego Pacheco versus Steven Nelson. Cruz Salcido. Pedraza versus what's his name? Why can I never remember the new Tito Mercado. Yeah, Mercado Pedraza. They're gonna have the new Nishan Dev, the new Indian signing on that card. Zakeen Moses on that card. Leonardo Robocop. Just a brilliant day of fights. It's gonna be a lot of fun next Saturday. And then should be a couple more fights at the end of January, moving into February. It's gonna be a lot really fun next couple of weeks in the world of combat sports. Probably post an episode on Thursday, which we're gonna preview all the fights coming up. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in a few days.